I am so jealous of the Chinese market, specifically just the price of their vehicles there. Not jealous of the lack of freedom or crazy real estate prices, but Tesla cut prices across the Model 3 and Y lineup recently, and man, they are getting competitive. These prices are so low that people are protesting them because so many people bought these vehicles before the price cut took place. I can't really blame them for being upset. I don't know if it's necessarily illegal though. People are just angry that they feel like they got a bad deal. But of course, the most amazing one to me is the Model 3 rear-wheel drive, Tesla's cheapest option pretty much in all jurisdictions. It has a lithium iron phosphate battery pack, which means you can charge it to 100% regularly, just with a bit less range than the dual motor, and they lowered the price by 17%. Now, it should be worth mentioning that there were subsidies that these EVs qualified for last year that they no longer qualify for, but still, it was not that big of a tax credit. It was like around the ballpark of $1,200. This means that the starting price of any new Tesla in China is now about the equivalent of $34,000. We still see some people talking about how come Tesla never delivered the $35,000 Model 3? Well, over in China, they got it under $34,000 now, and it's like way better than the original $35K Model 3 was supposed to be. So that is an incredibly good offer, and Tesla themselves is claiming this is thanks to manufacturing innovations, but we all know that it probably has more to do with the competitive EV market over there, and that how BYD is scaling up production very, very fast as well. So Tesla basically has to lower prices in order to stay cost competitive with all of the other big players over there. But I think this will make them incredibly competitive. The Model 3 Performance only got like a 5.7% price drop, but it's still mind-blowing to think that the Model 3 Performance is basically the equivalent of $49,000 over in China, which is essentially $10,000 less than the Model 3 long range costs in the US. But here's the real kicker. Here's the one that we were absolutely waiting for to launch in the US, and it still hasn't launched yet. But for years and years, I was really, really hoping Tesla would do this. China still has the Model Y rear-wheel drive with lithium iron phosphate. This is, in my opinion, the best Tesla available if we're talking globally. You want that iron phosphate for the high cycle life and the 100% daily charging, but you want the Model Y for the hatchback design, the higher ride height, more storage space. It only costs them $38,000 equivalent over there. This is from a 13.5% price reduction. The Model Y starts less than $40,000 over in China right now, and I am super jealous that we don't have that here. Yeah, my Model 3 cost me 46 grand in the US, but you're telling me for $8,000 less, I could get an LFP Model Y in China. That is just so incredibly unfair. No wonder they're protesting. But the long range also saw a 13.5% discount for the Model Y, which means it now starts at $45,500 equivalent over in China. Again, totally unfair considering that Model Y is basically $10,000 cheaper than the long range Model 3 here in the US, which also means $18,000 cheaper than the similar spec Model Y long range here in the US. And the Model Y Performance also got like a 10% price reduction, now starting at $53,000, which is interesting if you consider that means the most expensive Tesla that Giga Shanghai is producing is still starting under $60,000 now, not counting full self-driving add-ons and that kind of thing. Whereas here in the US, it's very, very rare for you to find any Tesla for sub $60,000 new. And the reason I wanted to talk about it for today's video is mainly to showcase what can happen when manufacturing is at an all-time high. Giga Shanghai is still producing the most amount of Teslas out of all of their Gigafactories, and it's a more competitive market. So because Tesla's found a way to streamline production, make vehicles very, very quickly, and there's a market with lots of different options to choose from, that's what's resulted in these impossibly low prices that make everybody overseas cry. And that's what I'm hoping can happen in the US market in the EU as well, because when there's a competitive EV space and there are factories that are mass producing vehicles with extreme scale, that's when companies actually have to compete, and we can see the benefits of competition, which in my opinion in the United States, we're not really seeing the benefits of competition, because ultimately Tesla has such an absurd lead and the supercharging network is exclusive to Teslas, so that means that there's so many people that even though they may like ID4s or they may like like Rivians, they still are going to stick with Tesla because they know I don't want to rely on the crappy Electrify America network, which can't seem to get their acts together. And because Tesla has such a manufacturing lead and still a decent amount of demand, that's why, in my opinion, in the US, we have not seen prices go down, even though the tax credit is not qualifying for Tesla's most popular vehicles, and it's not ending up to be that big of a cost saver for so many people. It doesn't matter. Tesla's not lowering prices here in the US because I think they have basically matched demand with their current output supply, whereas in China, they started to exceed production from demand. That's when you see prices going down, and I want to remind people that that's okay. Tesla wanted to lower prices from the beginning, and when you're building vehicles, specifically like Giga Shanghai, and you're able to deliver them at mass volume, that means you can afford to take a smaller profit margin on each vehicle because you're selling more vehicles total. This is the whole point of scaling up manufacturing. Anyone who thought that Tesla was going to start building, 5 million, 10 million vehicles a year, but somehow keep prices all the same, just didn't understand the situation. There is a way to profitably sell vehicles at a lower price, and the answer is volume. You need to be able to make lots of them, and that's what Tesla is slowly figuring out, and I'm so grateful for it. And I'm hopeful that Tesla can start to outbuild supply here in the US so that we can actually see some price reductions, but so far, in the first couple weeks of January, it doesn't appear to be happening. But rest assured, I'll be reporting any and all price cuts we get in America as well. But I'm hopeful that the Model 3 refresh will really unlock insanely low prices. This is part of the reason I don't believe Tesla needs to make a compact or the theoretical Model 2 in order to achieve lower prices, because we're already seeing in Shanghai them sell Model 3s, I assume profitably, for just a little over 33 grand. So I know that labor is always going to cost more in the US than it will in China, but China is still not using single piece castings or even structural battery packs yet. And there's talk about Tesla temporarily shutting down Model 3 manufacturing in the US so that they can update it with more modern manufacturing approaches. So if you brought the single piece castings and all that Tesla has learned from Model Y ramping to the Model 3 at Fremont, and maybe found a way to do lithium iron phosphate with a structural battery pack, we know BYD can figure this out with their Blade battery, I think that could help offset the higher labor costs that we have in the US, and that would mean theoretically in the next few years maybe Tesla will be able to sell a rear-wheel drive Model 3 for under $35,000, or at least close to $35K, which would be a so much better deal and such a great buy compared to what they're charging right now for the Model 3 rear-wheel drive, which is close to 50 grand. But I still feel like the Model 3 I bought is one of the best EVs on the market in the US right now. Just to have a vehicle that's, under 55K that has LFP and has supercharging access and has all of the great chips that make a Tesla what it is with its responsive software, Tesla Theater and the battery preconditioning and the software updates with the holiday update and all that. Even with the build quality issues, it's still an amazing buy. I can't wait to imagine what the market would be like if they could sell my current Model 3 for $35,000. And of course, I'll have to stand outside Fremont and protest that Tesla give me my money back. But I'm joking about that. Legitimately, I want more people to experience what I've experienced with my vehicle, so I'm all in favor of price cuts. I'm sorry to the people that feel like they got a ripoff, but I just have to be honest to the protesters and admit that, at some point, prices are gonna go down. And to act like you saw a price on a website, you put in your order, and you took delivery, and you got your vehicle with a certain subsidy, and it was delivered as promised, but now you're upset that someone else that got the car after you is getting a better deal? That's a fairly slippery slope. What percentage is okay for Tesla to drop prices and have them not honor previously priced vehicles that people agreed to pay for? Should they not be allowed to drop prices more than 5% overnight, or should it be restricted to 3%? If you do believe that it's fundamentally wrong for Tesla to lower prices, tell me how you feel the price reduction strategy should work. Should it be limited to a percentage per month, or should Tesla never be allowed to lower prices under any circumstances? What's wrong with you if you think that way? But all that good stuff, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And thank you to everyone on Patreon supporting this channel directly. It seriously helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again. Have an excellent rest of your day.